Good evening, everyone. I'm Sue Ann Hong, President and CEO for the Asian Pacific American Women.
And I'm Ken Lee. I'm the CEO of OCA Asian Pacific American Advocates.
Thank you for joining us tonight for day 4 of our conference. It's been a rich conference so far, and there's been so much learning for our amazing speakers. But before we begin tonight, we want to extend our sincere apologies for the inappropriate images and profanities that our attendees and panelists were subjected to during one of our Zoom panel sessions, which was hacked by unknown sources yesterday. We are very disheartened, disappointed, and outraged with this demonstration of such hateful behavior. The well-being and safety of our panelists and attendees are of the utmost importance to us. Thank you to our moderators and panelists for demonstrating their professionalism during this difficult incident. There will be additional follow-up in the coming days.
A formal complaint has been filed with Zoom today. After consulting with OCA's General Counsel, we will be reporting the incident to law enforcement to take action to the fullest extent of the law. We have taken appropriate actions to assure the integrity of our conference going forward. We have and will continue to conduct an internal process to review and ensure that we take appropriate security measures in our programs to assure the safety and security of our panelists and attendees. This showcases the importance and urgency of our work, developing, elevating, and providing support for women of color and women in general. This is critical, and we need to learn, educate, and move forward.
Thank you, Ken. And now to start our second session for the evening, the Relational Capital, Building Networks in 2021 and Beyond. I'm going to turn it over to Tu Nguyen, Director of OCA Asian Pacific American Advocates.
Thank you, Sue-Ann. Before I introduce our moderator, I want to thank our community partners, APIA scholars, and National ACE. I also would like to thank our corporate sponsors for sponsoring this week: AARP, Comcast, NBC Universal, State Farm, UPS, and Walmart. Moderating this session is someone who we at OCA know has been a great cultivator of relational capital. She was always looking to convene people in her networks, and she has always brought a certain personal joy to her working relationships. I know that firsthand. It is my honor to introduce one of our partners, Lacari Jackson, Director of Social Impact at the UPS Foundation.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. I am delighted to be here with you this evening. And I have actually just been waiting and sitting on ready for this particular conference to take place. I'd love to get started by introducing our panelists for tonight's session. First, I would love to introduce you to Ms. Annette Martinez, who is the Senior Vice President with State Farm Insurance Companies. Next, I would like to invite Ms. Lita Speller, who is the Certified Financial Planner for Apogee Financial Partners. And she's also a member of the Board of Directors for WEOP.org. Third, I would like to invite to come to the screen Ms. Ebony Wyatt, who is the Director of Sales with General Mills. Finally, I would like to invite Ms. Chilling Tong, who is the President and CEO with Asian Pacific Islander American Chamber of Commerce and Entrepreneurship, National ACE. And I would like to take this opportunity to give each person, as I have brought them to the screen, I would like to give you just 1 minute, 60 seconds to help everyone understand who you are. So a short introduction, starting with Annette, please.
Great, thank you so much. And I'm so grateful to be here today. My name is Annette Martinez, as she said, Senior Vice President with State Farm Insurance. I've been with State Farm for over 33 years in a variety of positions, working across the country, and been very pleased and just very honored to work with them. I have worked in a number of areas, but the most areas I've been involved in have been around people issues. So human resources, learning and development, public affairs, corporate responsibility. And in 2002, I had the privilege of starting the diversity and inclusion initiatives for State Farm. So I'm so grateful to be with you tonight and look forward to visiting.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lita Speller, and as she mentioned, I am a financial planner with Apogee Financial Partners based here in Atlanta. And in addition to working as a financial planner in a boutique wealth management practice, I also do a lot of work in the community around economic equity and equality. And so I am on the board of Women's Entrepreneurial Opportunity Project. I also work on a number of other community organizations and programs in helping particularly minority-owned small businesses scale and be viable ongoing concerns in their communities. Again, I am so grateful to be here tonight amongst an incredible panel of women and the community that is joining us to have this conversation. So thank you.
Ebony, please, if you can give us a short introduction. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ebony Wyatt. I work for General Mills. I'm Director of Sales for our natural and organic customers based out of Minnesota. I also recently started my own business, which is a public speaking business, Ebony Wyatt Speaks. So I've been an entrepreneur for the last 3 months as well. I am very active in the community as well. I work with the Network of Executive Women as part of their Women of Color Advisory Council. And I'm also on the alumni board for the Walton College at the University of Arkansas, where I chair that board. So excited to be here with each of you tonight and share a little bit of wisdom. So thanks for the invite.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chi-Ling Tong. I'm the president and CEO at the Asian Pacific Islander American Chamber of Commerce and Entrepreneurship, also known as a National ACE. We represent 2.2 million Asian American Pacific Islanders business owners who employ about 3.6 million people. And also, we have worked closely with over 65 affiliate AAPI chambers and partners throughout the country, and to provide accurate information to deal with COVID. And recently, because the anti-AAPI violence, is all over the country, and that damaged tremendously AAPI business owners, especially women. So we have developed a APIA Strong campaign, try to help those Asian business women, because almost 1 in 3 AAPI women business owners have experienced anti-AAPI sentiment because of the pandemic. So I'm just so sorry what happened, yesterday, and thank Ken Sangasua to help us to deal with the issues.
Thank you. All right, so we will get right into it. I will be honest that when I saw even just the title of the session a couple of weeks ago, I was so excited. It's a very relevant topic, and it's so timely to be having discussions at this particular time. And I just want to, build the framework here and share with you that I remember years ago, early in my career, one of my mentors mentioned to me, and they said, relationships determines results. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So we know that relationship building is very, very important, both personally and professionally. So I want to address this 2-part question to Ebony, Annette, Lita, and Chili, to all of you. I want to hear from you, and our audience wants to hear from you. How do you define relational capital? And then secondly, why is it so important? So let's get started. We'll start with Ebony, please.
All right, I'll jump in. So when I think of relational capital, I think of personal value that can be exchanged. So I think of a relationship that's a two-way street. I think of understanding what your value is and what you bring to the relationship. Also understanding what the other person's value is, but really the benefit is leveraging that value. How do you help and support one another and really making that capital work hard for you? Not just having it, but using it.
Love it. Thank you. What about you, Chilling?
Oh, yes, definitely. I think I have been public service for most of my career, and so honored to have met so many people that I still keep in touch with today. And many of them have helped me in different stage of my career. So I never really take for granted how powerful each of those relationships are. I think among relationship, trust is the most important thing. And I always feel women will be able to build a relationship better than men. You know, if you look at the women, they always have so many friends. We can be on the phone for so long. But men, they just like a very, very task focused. They're just kind of working on their task. So I think define the relationship that women are so good. So I'm just so proud today we talk about this topic. And also in my present role, because the relationship we have built through the past will be able to help in so many areas with our national nonprofit. So that everyone knows each other, especially for AAPI community, you know, everybody knows each other. And so because we can trust each other, so we will be able to use our relations capital very, very well.
So I love that. And so if I'm hearing you correctly and exactly with what you and Ebony have mentioned, that there is a connection, right? And so I'll tell you, Chilling, you had mentioned that women, we're better in relationships than men. So I'll say, you know, if we have any men that's listening in, they may not agree with you, but I'll tell you, I'm on your side about that. But let me just kind of pivot over to Lita and Annette. I want to ask you the same question, but let's think about it. Let's just add this particular piece to it. They talked about how there is a connection, right? But tell me this, do you think that there is a connection as it relates to the relational capital and influence? Okay, so think about that. And then can you give me an example of how that particularly looks, how that connection kind of has worked out for you? Lita?
Yeah, so I guess I would start by saying that I define relational capital as the value that exists in the relationships that you have in and around your business or your professional life, and the ability of those relationships to positively impact however it is that you measure your success. So whether it is the success in your business or the growth in your career trajectory, the ability of those relationships that you have around you to positively impact that growth. And so that is how I would define relational capital. I definitely believe that there is a connection between relational capital and influence. And I believe that that is true because I believe that the same core characteristics that are required to build good relational capital are also required to build and establish influence. So Chilling mentioned trust, right? I think building relational capital requires that you are trustworthy. It requires that you are respected. It requires that you are perceived to a certain degree in a positive light. And I think that those characteristics, and certainly many others, are also required to build influence. And if I were to give an example, a recent example would be that I certainly have a a relationship with a business owner here in the metropolitan Atlanta community, who's a very successful business owner with multiple businesses. And, you know, this business owner and I have a long-standing relationship. There's relational capital on both fronts, right? As Ebony mentioned earlier, it's a mutual, you know, mutually beneficial dynamic. So definitely mutually beneficial relational capital. And I was kind of leading this program or mentoring in this program group and saw where this startup business and what they were offering was well aligned to some of the needs of a business owner with whom I'd established a long history and I think a good store of relational capital. And so it was very easy for me to go knock on their door and say, would you be willing to hear this person out, to learn about their business, to see if there are opportunities to work with them? And so I think that is an example where kind of relational capital and influence coexist, and for the same reasons, right? The establishment of trust, the mutual respect, and viewing each other and what we do in a positive light.
Oh, I love it. This is great. This is awesome. Thank you for that. Annette, can we hear from you before we go to the next question?
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, so many great things were shared. And so I don't want to pile on and absolutely agree with so much was shared, but I want to pull out a few things that I think for women, sometimes what we do is we assume that this relational capital means we both like each other as well. And that doesn't necessarily have to come into play. So there are times where perhaps we don't have this relationship where we're friends outside of work and we have to go out for drinks or check in with each other on a regular basis, but it's about building respect in these relationships as well. And I think that's sometimes where women get derailed a little bit, because if they don't feel that personal connection and warmth, they may say, well, I can't have that, you know, that I'm not going to worry about that relationship. We don't have the luxury of doing that. You have to build relationships, even with people who you may not personally connect with, but you both see value. I like what Ebony said. There's some value in reciprocal value, but it may not be just at that personal level. And so that's one clarification. And I want to go back to what Chilling said about, you know, some differences in relationship building around men and women. I don't like to generalize, but there are, I think fundamentally, we all know that we approach it differently. And so that's where lies the problem, right? If I'm a woman and working closely with a man and we're going to approach it differently, I could sometimes be offended by the way they approached it because they've compartmentalized it and I feel like they haven't created any strength in our relationship. Or I can learn to function with different people in different ways. And so my encouragement for all of us is to recognize the relationship capital will differ between people and relationships and the dynamics of that. And, you know, I've worked, when I first started with the company, it was predominantly men in leadership roles. And so I had to really learn how to navigate that. And even now, you know, I'm still navigating with people maybe that I don't know as well, or people in positions of power that I need some assistance with. And I just find that come to common ground, the common output. Oftentimes we're like, what are we really trying to accomplish? And how do we agree to get there together too?
This is fantastic. And I'm thinking now, I really hope, and I understand this is being recorded, but I really hope that somehow we bring all of you together to be able to write some type of a book, or to put together like words of wisdom in a book, because these are golden nuggets. Thank you for sharing. And I'm going to the next question, but for all of you who are on this, who are watching and who are online with us, please send us your questions for our esteemed panelists tonight, because we want to make sure that we get your questions asked. So I want to pivot, and let's start with Ebony, and then we'll go to Lita. So is there something that you do consistently to strengthen relationships? That's like inquiry minds want to know, and I'll tell you, I'm the first who want to know. So help me to understand, what are you doing consistently to strengthen relationships? What does that look like? And then also help us to understand how that helps your personal brand.
That's a powerful question. I'd like to call myself a power connector. Like, I enjoy meeting new people, and I've learned to really see the value in building relationships versus, I think sometimes as women, we see networking as a scary thing or overwhelming. We don't always want to lean into it. So I just see myself as a power connector, right? So I think sometimes you just reframe and it helps. And so because of that, I'm an only child. I think that may have something to do with it too. But I also am in business, and my job is to build relationships with my customers. But some of the things I do consistently is I make sure I check in with those people in my network that mean the most to me. And now you have so many methods to check in. So sometimes it's a simple text message to say, hey, I know you started your new job a few weeks ago. How's it going? Sometimes it's I see them celebrating something on LinkedIn, and I make sure I send them an extra note to say, hey, I see you just got promoted. That's fantastic. I know such and such is your organization. If there's any way I can help, please let me know. It's that extra step. And sometimes it's an email. If it's somebody that may not be active on social media, or somebody that's not tech savvy or may not want to text, guess what? I'll send an email. Hey, I was just thinking about you today. We had this type of event, and the last time I went, we all went together. So what is the connection? You know, what is the best medium, I think, to communicate? I think so many times it feels like it's this overwhelming event. No, there's small steps that you can take to connect. And then the second part of that question, how does that help your personal brand? I think being a connector is part of my brand. And so I just encourage y'all women, one of the sessions I teach is building your badass brand and building your badass network. There's something, you got to be really clear on what your brand is and how does that brand translate to that person, right? My brand as a public speaker might translate differently to a person versus my brand as a sales executive. And so really being clear about your brand can stand for different things. Like this space, I'm going to play up these elements of my brand, right? If I'm looking for a job, I'm going to play up these elements of my brand. But the one thing I want to share with women out there is you got to be really clear on what your brand is. What do you represent? How do you bring that to the relationship? And how do you help to drive value with that brand? What is special about that for that individual that you're in relationship with?
This is good. And let me just tell you, I'm an only child as well. So I just want to put it out there. But okay, so let's because I can go on and on. Let's go over to Lita, please.
Yeah. So everything that Ebony shared, I mean, just great. And I agree wholeheartedly. And, you know, to Annette's earlier point, I'm not going to pile a whole lot onto that. But I think what I would say is when it comes to my personal brand and, you know, how I build relational capital and how that lends to my personal brand, I really see myself as a community builder. And so making powerful connections of, you know, just connecting people and, you know, putting people and causes and interests together is certainly a way in which I invest in building my own relational capital. And so I do that frequently. And I do that by understanding the people who are in my orbit and what it is that they're up to and trying to accomplish and the differences that they're trying to make, whether it be in their business or community or career. And looking for opportunities to connect those who don't yet know each other. And I will also say that it is so important to just be genuine and to be authentic and bring your true and real self into these engagements and these opportunities. And so again, I see myself as a community builder. I'm always out in the community looking for ways to make a difference. And so another way in which I invest in building my own relational capital is by understanding the ways in which the people around me are interested in making a difference in their communities and in the worlds. And so, and align myself with those causes where it makes sense. And so I sit on boards, I join organizations, I volunteer at events where my personal or professional vision or interests may align with others.
Listen, let me mention something here. I don't see any questions in the chat box, any Q&A that's out there. Please send in your questions, because I am going to just like literally suck up all of this time. This information is so good, the wisdom nuggets that are being shared. And I believe that this is just for me, maybe, because it's so good. Annette and Chilling, before I go to the next question, do you have anything you would like to add?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I tell you, I just love all your questions, because those are really, really key points. Talking about relationship capital and the influence and branding, there is a great connections. And I think this all go hand in hand, because in business, government, and non-profit sectors, everything is built on relationship. And as I mentioned, and also everybody emphasized, how we can trust and respect, and definitely can influence over major decision or actions. For example, at the National ACE, we are currently for our AAPI Strong campaign, which is devoting the resources to help AAPI business owner, especially female, overcome business challenges from the devastating impact of COVID-19 and the negative impact of anti-AAPI bias has had on their business. And because the strong relationship we have with the board of directors, they represent big corporations, and also key elected officials and community partners. So we are able to have significant result in this campaign in very, very short amount of time. And we invested in there, and they invested in us. So we just feel very, very sad what's happening to our community, especially women. A recent report of the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics show that the AAPI women have been hit hardest, with 44% having been jobless or unemployed for 6 months or longer. So when we want to help our AAPI women, I think everybody willing to come out to support this strong mission together.
Thank you for sharing that, Chilling, and especially those stats. It's really startling. Thank you for sharing that with us. Annette, we are getting some questions in, so do you mind if I pivot and let's take a question from our audience, and I'll pose that to you, Annette, if you're okay with that.
Yes.
Okay, good deal. First question. When your work and family obligations are so overwhelming for certain types of jobs, how do we continue to build relationships outside of work?
So I have my daughter now just graduated from college, but I was very active moving in my career when she was an infant. And so I can certainly feel the pain and remember some of those early years. And maybe I forgot some of those early years as well, because it was a bit of a blur as to. So what I would tell women all of the time is to say, first of all, set your expectations realistically as well. You may not be able to have it all the time. And you're going to have to balance some things and make some choices. And so one of the things I would tell women often is outsource what you can. If you're really committed to your career, and we all want to be super mom, then what can you outsource? What are the things that you can do to that it's worth paying the money for, so you can spend your time where you really want to focus? And I think you have to be very clear about where you're willing to focus your time. Making sure you have great support systems around you. I was moving around the country. I did not have family around me. It was my husband and I and our daughter. And I struggled asking for help, but finding people who care about you, who want to be a part of the whole journey, and really to that village concept, we all have to come together and figure that out as well. But for me, more than anything, I would say be very clear what you're trying to accomplish. Lay it out and decide, where am I willing to give and take, and how am I going to approach it, and recognize it may not feel great all of the time, but at least you'll be a little more focused on what you want to accomplish and get done, and put your energy there. So one of the things that I learned about myself is because I wanted to be super mom, I was doing things that actually were not needed. And a great story that I'll just really quickly share is every time I would get ready to go on a trip, and I traveled every week and I was on the road all of the time. My daughter was under a year old, and I would do, get her clothes ready for the week, get her food ready for the week, make sure all the ironing was done, the laundry was done, the grocery shopping. So I called it nesting, and I was out there nesting and getting everything ready. And I was frustrated because here I wanted to go out and be a great, powerful woman as well. And my husband stopped me one day and he said, listen, you're making my life miserable. And he said, do not put this on me. I know how to do laundry. I know how to go to the grocery store, and I can dress her. Everything's fine. You don't put that pressure on yourself, and don't put it on me as well. Sometimes it takes people to really just kind of shake you to say, don't try to do it all, but focus on the things that really matter, and then decide where you're going to give and take. And I think it's not that simple. I recognize that, but it is doable.
I'd like to add there, if you don't mind, Annette. I love the point about outsourcing. I think so many times we've made outsourcing to be a bad thing, right? But you have to make choices. So I'm a mom of 3. And so I'm married. My husband works, I work. We've relocated just recently, but I've relocated 8 times, right? So it has been a crazy, and so you have to really figure out your system. And just a few things that I want to share. I'm still very active. So I'm on 3 boards. I got 2 jobs, as I've shared with you. I think outsourcing is important. So one of the little things that I do is I outsource kid laundry. Somebody comes in and does the laundry. It's just overwhelming. It's not a good use of my time. And guess what? I can pay somebody to get it done, right? The other thing is you have to be very planful, and you have to make sure the things that you sign up for are aligned to your vision. So today somebody asked me to be on a panel and it wasn't quite my thing. And I said, no, like you have to be very comfortable saying no to the things that don't align to your vision. And then the third piece is networking is a part of my job. And so I build time into my workday. We're a very relationship driven organization. So like I can think of today, I had a mentoring session. I did 2 women at one time. I used to do 1 at a time. Nope. I got a group of 8 over here, a group of 10 over here, because I can't do mentoring 1-to-1. My schedule won't allow it. So being creative, being flexible, but also making sure that whatever thing you sign up for aligns to your goals and your principles, and not just doing it because somebody asked you to.
That is awesome. That is great advice from both of you. I am going to swing back to the Q&A in just a second. I see the questions coming in, and they are good. But let me pivot right quick. And I want to see, let's get Chilling. Can you share with us an example of a time where you had to manage up 1 or more layers of leadership? Okay. So just help us to understand what that looked like. And then like maybe 1 tip or 2 tips, just the best practices for someone who needs to understand that particular piece.
Okay, great. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. I just cannot echo more with our, fellow panelists, because when we talk about busy, it's everybody's so busy. Even we all work from home, we are more busier than before. I think there is an advantage and also disadvantage to work from home, because when we are home, we have to do housework. We have to, or professional work. If we go to the office, sometimes we can just ignore the housework. But when we are at home, we will look at every corner and say, oh my God, I have to fix this, I have to fix that. So we are more and more busy than before. It's just like all of you, I'm serving on 5 different boards. And also I have to take care of my husband. I have to take care of so many things. When you are doing all this tedious work, you just totally forget about your mission. You forget what's the leadership. Sometimes I feel I have no leadership at all at home. I may have a strong leadership outside the world, but when I'm at home, I have no leadership at all. But I always remind to myself, I'm willing to pay other people to do those work. So if I like make $3, I will pay $2 for people to handle those work. So I will be able to focus on my mission and also my leadership. I think sometimes it's very important to take time to prioritize what is important for you. So if among all the discussion I have discussed with people, with all of you today, I would like to give you one advice. People is the most important thing when you deal with any kind of business. As long as you can handle people, you can handle the task. So from time to time, I always want to do extra miles for people because I'm trying to build in my browning points. Maybe people have a different leadership style. For some people, very, especially men, very, very task oriented. But for me, it's people oriented. I always want to have extra bonding points. So in the future, I know I will make a mistake. I know sometimes, I have no patience, but because people know I do my best, it's also always from the heart. I think the leadership is awake people's life, awake people's mission. When I'm especially dealing with young people, I always want to remind them, what is the mission of your life? Just always focus on and always deal with people first. If you can handle people, you can handle your task.
Very powerful. And the thing that you brought out that, it just made me think about, even when you talked about leadership style, because there are different leadership styles, to your point, but the people are really, and loving people or working with people is really the heart of the matter. Let me go to one more question before I focus on the Q&A. Let's try Lita with this one. For multicultural women, especially, and I'll just say for me, I've seen quite a bit, and I've even experienced it, that we lack mentors and sponsors, okay? This is from observation and it's from experience over the years. So my question to you is, how do you approach someone to be a mentor or a sponsor? I've heard many different perspectives, but I think that it is definitely worth hearing from you and your experience, if you can share with us, please.
Yeah, wow. And so a lot of us, just listening to Annette's story, and I'm sure many of us, both on this panel, as well as attending this webinar, can relate to being in like male-dominated spaces. And so I have to admit that for me, early in my career, that was part of what was holding me back from, seeking mentors, like in my professional space. But I would have to say that for me, it was just getting to a point where I was willing to ask for help and to ask for help in that way. I think a lot of us do have an issue or have challenges around just asking for help. And then I would say that anyone seeking a mentor or sponsorship should be prepared to say why they've approached that particular person for that kind of support or guidance, right? What is it that you see in that person? And what is it that you think, that person can do to support you in your growth and where you're headed? So kind of being able to do both of those, recognize why it is that you want to align yourself with this leader as a mentor or a sponsor, and the impact that you would expect that relationship to have on your growth.
Yeah, I absolutely love that, because I just remember distinctly one particular time where I was just really honest and authentic and asked for the help that you talked about. And literally, that's when I saw things change in my career. So yeah, this awesome advice. So I am going to pivot right now, everyone, to the Q&A. And so for the panelists, I would ask if any of you think that you want to take a particular question and address it, then by all means do so. So the first question is, from a career and business professional, how can we begin to build relational capital in networks that we may not have access? For example, a small business owner trying to do business with a $1 million business owner. Can anybody help us out with that one?
I can jump in if nobody wants to go first. This is an interesting one because I had a great example today. So as I shared, I started my own business a few months ago, and it's a public speaking business, and it's a grind, it's a hustle. You have to make connections and build connections in order to be successful. And I have a pretty well-defined network, but it's still, I don't have a broad public speaking network. So what I found is, number one, you have to be willing to share what you're doing. So I had to get real clear in telling everybody who would listen about my business. And so that's hard for some people, being very clear. And I put together a 3-page kind of marketing template to help me describe what it is that I do. So one, in sharing that, one of my mentors, we talked about a month ago, and he's like, hey, I saw on LinkedIn, you've got your business going. I'm so proud of you. Actually, Ebony, I know somebody who is a well-renowned public speaker, and you guys should talk. Today, we actually met for the first time. He gave me an hour of his time. He's $1 million a year speaker, minimum. And there are, I forget the title, but let's say there are 200 like power speakers in the world. There are 5 African Americans. He's one of them. So because I opened my mouth and shared with my mentor what I was doing, what I was working on, where I'm headed, what I'm trying to do, he gave me access to his network. And so my guidance to Mac or anybody out there who may have a similar situation is talk to the people you do have access to. Let them know what you're working on and what you're trying to accomplish. And if they believe in you, guess what? They may just grant you access to their network.
Yes, and also I would like to add on that. It's very, very important we ask for help. Don't be afraid. If you ask for help, you will be surprised how many people are willing to help you. And also, it's very important. I always talk to the young people, you have to focus on your existing clients. 50% of the additional business, a lot is from existing customers. So if you serve them well, if you communicate with them well, if you talk to them well, they will introduce people to you. So even though, because we need to expand our funding or colleague or staff always outreach to new people, which is very, very good. But I always bring the attention, come back to your current customer, your current funder. Mm-hmm. You have to take them well, and they will help you to introduce more people to you.
Yeah, I do want to add something. I'm sorry, I want to add something from the company standpoint. So from being a big company and how people often want to, get into the network and try to figure out how to do it. So first of all, Ebony, I loved what you said as well. It's not a straight shot. You're not going to maybe go from A to B. So you got to figure out how to continue to use your networks and their networks and to broaden it. So that's really important. But from the big company standpoint too, I just want to encourage us also to be open to listening to some of these other folks. So I get a lot of connections from LinkedIn, and it's amazing. I try to respond to everyone that catches me on LinkedIn just as a courtesy. And who, in the future, maybe I'm going to need that person as well. And so even though I may be a big corporation and I get a lot of inputs from people, I'm just as responsible for building back relationships from smaller entities. And I think then collectively we can work together to get things done. So just want to remind us, it's not one way. And how do we work together and help each other out through this process? Because like I said, who knows when I might need that person and the skill set they bring or the product they bring to me. And I want to make sure I keep those doors open as well too. So I think, again, this goes back to being reciprocal and thinking thinking bigger than just, hey, I don't need you, but thinking about I may need you in the future.
And be prepared for the opportunities you seek. You know, I think we should be thinking about how prepared are we for that which we are seeking. Because when you aren't, you know, it could have a negative effect and actually set you back. You know, you'd hate to get into the door of a big corporation and have the opportunity and not be able to deliver on, you know, the promise. So I think it's also important that we as small business owners be prepared for the opportunities that we get so hard or get out here and try so hard to pursue.
I promise you, like literally, this event, it was free, but I promise you, like the wisdom that's coming from each panelist is unbelievable. It's priceless. So, oh my goodness, awesome. Annette, I do have a question. There's a question that came in specifically for you. And so I'm going to read it, and I'm hoping that you can get the gist of what the question is. So the question is, are there career detailers? And can you give an example?
Yeah, I know. It's actually derailers.
Ah,
I bet you it's derailers. And I didn't send that question in, but my guess is it's derailers as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so we talk a lot about career derailers. And sometimes what we talk about is sometimes your strengths can become derailers. And so, you know, I may be in a situation where I'm really strong at one particular thing. And if I overuse that, it can actually work against me too. And so, you know, a lot of the career derailers I see specifically for women is often this thing that we've been talking about, is that we want to work so hard to prove ourselves. We don't want to ask for help. We're going to be all things to all people, and we'd fall short in lots of places. Or it just becomes so overwhelming to people because they see the frenzy around us as well. And when I think about leadership and creating confidence in other people, and especially in senior leaders, it's around them being able to say, you know, she can handle high pressure situations. She doesn't over rotate on issues. We recognize she's going to create calm in the storm, and we want her to come with some stability and all of that. And so when I see women, oftentimes for all the right reasons, and I don't want to discourage women from really being aggressive and going for your goals, but think about how that gets perceived and how other people may read into that, and recognize, and maybe have some great friends around you. I always say, have great friends around you that are willing to tell you the truth. And when you're over rotating on these things, they can pull you aside, put their arm around you and say, hey, that was a little much. You know, that they kind of slapped us in the face. And is that really the persona that you want to have? Now, sometimes my job as a woman leader is to shake people and to say, and to be the strong voice in the room. But if I do that every day, do I shut down the conversation, or do I break down relationships as well? So the whole concept of derailers are those things that we use that maybe create us derailing from our career, and thinking about how maybe I can redirect or recover from those things that perhaps are negative or being perceived as negative.
So I'm going to go to Lita next because I need for her to close the loop on something for us. But let me just say this to you, Annette. I'll tell you right now, when you talked about get people in your, you know, around you who tell the truth, you know, who will be honest with you. Sometimes people, you know, you don't want to hear the truth, but I'll listen. I totally back you up on that, because you want to hear the truth, no matter how much it hurts, from people, you know, who really have your well-being, your best interest at heart. So that's important. Lita, I do want to cross over to you, because let's close the loop on the mentorship and the sponsorship piece. When someone has been, and this is one of the concerns that has been placed in the box, what happens when someone has been turned down multiple times? Nobody, you know, wants to really, you know, pick them up and sponsor or mentor. I mean, do you have any advice for us on that and what, you know, they could possibly do? You're on mute. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I think oftentimes we view our sponsors and mentors as people that we have to be in direct relationship with. So myself, for a long time, I mean, I'm in the wealth management space, and 100 years ago, when I first started in this space, there weren't a lot of people that I felt comfortable with approaching about that. And as I moved through my career, and probably over the last decade, I started paying a lot of attention to Melody Hobson, who is, you know, the CEO, now this one of the co-CEOs of Ariel Investments, but has been doing big things in the industry, has been doing really big things in the industry for years. And I think sometimes we have to pick those mentors that we may not be able to be in direct relationship with. Study them, follow them, learn what they're up to, learn the path that they took to success. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to always be a two-way street. And while I did not know her or connect with her personally, she absolutely was a mentor in my career development. And so I think that is, you know, that is just one thing that we can do. Just recognize that sometimes, you know, you have to allow people to mentor you from afar, right? Particularly those who we are able to have a glimpse into, or to be able to follow because they have very public careers or very public successes and are willing to very openly share in the various multitudes of platforms that we have today, their experiences, their wins, their losses, their strengths, their weaknesses. And this is me personally, you know, I am just a very introspective person. And so when I'm trying something and trying something and trying something, and I am not getting the results that I am seeking, then I turn to myself and ask, is there something that I can do differently? Is there something that maybe, you know, I can work on? You know, it's just not, those aren't questions that I'm afraid to ask myself. And then the final thing I would say is that I would not give up trying. Maybe it isn't that person, you know, but that should not deter you from continuing to ask for the guidance and the support that you need in your career path to be successful.
Oh man, this is so good to me. Let me just tell, I'm sorry, Annette, were you about to?
I was just going to say one thing really quick. First of all, I love that mentoring from afar. I love that whole concept. That was just beautiful to say. You can learn from people without having to sit across a table or across a Zoom and really studying them and having that conversation. So there was an idea that somebody gave me, so I'm not going to even claim credit for this, but actually they found good success in doing 30-minute mentoring sessions. And it was just a one-time 30-minute session. And so it's easy to ask somebody, can I just have 30 minutes of your time? One time, I'm not going to ask to mentor again. And people are usually willing to give 30 minutes. Everybody loves to talk about themselves and their career. And so leaning into just how you're going to learn about them, and you aren't asking for more time. In some cases, those may build to bigger, longer time relationships. But I always love that concept. And I asked them, have you ever been turned down? And she said, no, never been turned down for a one-time 30-minute meeting, because most people will commit to that too. So there's another creative way perhaps to build, and then it broadens your network. Think about if you meet somebody once a month, thinking over a year, you met 12 new mentors and maybe have people that you're building that relationship with. So just a concept I wanted to share.
Yeah, fantastic. And also, yes, and also I want to, mention that during this pandemic, you know, many people have been laying off, especially as I mentioned, API women have been hit the hardest with 44% have been jobless or employed for 6 months or longer. So I would like to give some advice to young people, especially right now. I understand a lot of people have some mental problem right now, because this is a situation people have never faced before. It's very hard. But I tell you, if I look back my life, when I was young, I have been, I have so many, experience. I even consider myself as a failure. I did not, pass the test to go to the university. And I was like, lowest score among the class. And after college, don't know what to do. It's very hard, especially right now. But I really want to encourage people, when you are young, you're facing difficulties, you're facing challenges, which is a blessing. It's better than when you get older and like when you're 50, 60 years old and you have challenges. Because when you are young, you face challenges that can help you strengthen yourself. But I think there are so many things we can learn during this time, you know, to do your work, to continue connect with people and continue send your resume, continue, don't give up. This is America. I'm sure everything will go back to normal. So by that time, you prepare yourself well.
Fantastic. So I have to be transparent here. Our time is running out. So I want to direct this question to Ebony. And I think that this ties in with one of the questions that I wanted to ask anyway. This is from our audience. So thanks for sharing tips on solidifying relationships with existing contacts. Could you share some practical advice on how to build relationships with new contacts in the virtual world?
That's a great question. And what a great opportunity COVID has given us for the last 12 months in terms of finding new ways to communicate, new ways to connect. I'm thinking about a new relationship. I was at a conference sitting there next to a lady, just started chit-chatting, right? So it's a real example. Found her on LinkedIn, friended her, but we hadn't talked in probably 2 years. Scrolling through my social media and I see that she got promoted and there was like a post about her. Now she wasn't on that platform. So I take that screenshot, I send it to her on LinkedIn and said, hey, congratulations, look at you, you're doing big things. Guess what? Hey, Ebony, I'm looking for X, Y, and Z. Would you be interested? All because I said, hey, congratulations. But I did it via LinkedIn. I didn't have to make a phone call. I didn't have to sit in a 30-minute meeting. So I think in this environment, we've learned new ways to connect. And when this is over, we should keep the things that were good about it, right? So I'm like, I don't know if I'll ever travel as much as I did before when I can connect with my customers like this. And I think we've all found some benefit. So my recommendation is, even if you see somebody on LinkedIn and they've got some interesting things to say, I've done that recently with my new business. Hey, I love the platforms. I love what you post. We should get together for 30 minutes and chat. Just an intro. There's nothing more I'm asking of. And so I love when Annette shared just asking for 30 minutes. Most people will say yes. But number one, you got to ask. Closed mouth will not be fed. So if you don't ask the question, you don't know whether or not they're willing to meet you. And now you have all these platforms. And even sometimes what used to be a phone call, now it's FaceTime, because we can build a better connection. I want to see your face if I can. So I want to see your expression. I want to see what you react to. And so my recommendation is whatever form or medium you take on to communicate and meet new people, leverage something that has more of a personal touch. And so some way I can see your picture, your face, your expressions, but don't be afraid. But I'd say the question would be, are you comfortable asking for access to that person? What are your mediums to use? Are you part of any organizations where that could be a way to build new relationships? Or do you follow interesting people on your social media platform or on LinkedIn, for example? Are you willing to reach out? I think is a key question. And most people will be willing to meet with you for 30 minutes.
Good deal. All right, great stuff. So I want to, before I go to the other question that I see here in the Q&A, I want to see if Annette can help us with the last question that I wanted to get out on my little roster here. Annette, how important is emotional intelligence and how can it be further developed?
Yes, so emotional intelligence to me is very critical to really just be. So if I just define it just a little bit for us, is to say, being able to read the cues in the room, recognizing the social things that go on, not just what the words come out of people's mouth, but how the interactions are, paying attention to those things perhaps beyond just what's maybe said or presented, but really paying attention to everything that's happening around you. And I would say there are some people very naturally can read all those cues. You know, they grew up doing that, or they're in an environment, or they just have that discernment and are able to pick that up. I do believe it can be developed. It may not be to the level of people who have it very naturally, but I think it's around intentionality. It's around consistency. It is around sometimes closing your mouth and listening and watching. Oftentimes when we think about EQ, you know, it's so easy to get in a setting and we're talking and we're trying to get our point across and we want to show strength in where we're at versus just sitting in the moment, paying attention to all the dynamics around you, reading what people are, you know, the interactions, seeing what happens after the meeting. And so I think sometimes it's more around discipline than around maybe a general skill set that we bring to the table. So my encouragement to people is, so I'm a talker, I'm an incredible extrovert. If any test, I'm off the charts here. So I had a great mentor who was not actually somebody I would have picked, but somebody who picked him for me. And it was the hardest mentoring relationship I ever had because there was not any level of personal connection. But it was a person that actually taught me the most. And she talked to me a lot about shutting my mouth and listening and paying attention. She said it in a nicer way. But so I would go into a meeting and at the top of my page, I would write active listening. And I would just be quiet. And if I had a question, I would write my question down and there'd be a time for me to say it. But most of the time, I was paying attention to the things around me. And to me, that's where EQ really gets into that. It's really paying attention, being deliberate about watching what's happening around you. And definitely, I think that there's opportunities for us to get better at. It does take discipline. And for somebody like me, who's out there and, you know, wants to get my point across, it's taken a lot of discipline just to stop and pause and to be part of watching what's around me.
Fabulous. Thank you. So I want to, this is great stuff. And I already knew, I knew we were going to run out of time before I could just, you know, really soak everything in. I just feel like pulling up a cup of tea and a cup of coffee or something because this conversation is so good to me. I do want to pose the last question from the Q&A to Chilling. Chilling, as women, we are strong and we don't give up on trying. With that being said, it often sets unrealistic expectations for ourselves where we've felt overwhelmed and stressed out. So the question of the hour is, when is it okay to quit?
Yes.
And Chilling, I'm going to give you 60 seconds because if not, I'll get in trouble with Sue Ann. So 60 seconds, when is it okay to quit?
Yes. When it's time to quit. I have to, I just want to, thank all the panelists here. I personally learned so much today. And I think women, we give ourselves such a pressure. You know, sometimes we're just so stressful. And I tell you, Asian women, we are experiencing tremendously mental issues too, because we gave ourselves so much pressure. And to the certain point, it's time to quit. It's okay. But I think the good thing about women, we always can pick a phone to call our friends and just tell them to share with them what we're thinking, and we cry and we can express ourselves. So that's why women live longer than men, because I think we know when it's time to quit.
Thank you so much. All right, let's give it up for our panelists, the powerhouses. I mean, the most influential female leaders that I have met and come across. Thank you so much for your time. This was really amazing. And I want to turn it back over to Sue Ann. Thank you so kindly, everyone.
Thank you so much to the panelists. And Lacari, you did a fabulous job. I love your energy, and you did phenomenally. So thank you so much. So again, next session, you guys, it's going to be an amazing mentoring session at 8:30. We've also got, hopefully we've got in there a survey, because this was an amazing panel. And I want to thank our sponsors, State Farm, UPS, AARP, Walmart, and National ACE and API Scholars are our community partners. So thank you so much for being here. And I hope you guys took a lot of notes. And if not, we have this recording that you can look back and take a lot of nuggets from this session. So thank you, everyone, and good night. And thank you, all the panelists.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.